very, very special guest. I'm speaking Stefan Struve, one of the UFC legends, a phenomenal fighter and a very successful sports commentator at the moment. Stefan, I truly appreciate that you accepted my invitation, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for inviting me.
Man, I've always been curious to know, you fought many times in the UFC.
Uh-huh.
How does it feel to to step into that octagon and, for example, to get a knockout victory and to have the whole audience applauding you? Like, what are the how does it feel at that specific moment after an impressive victory?
Um, Pretty much the best feeling in the world. There's nothing really you can compare it with, in my opinion. Because you work so long, not just to get to the UFC, but you already know like 3 4 months before that you have that fight. So you're training a very long time, and then everything needs to come together in like 15 or 25 minutes. And when it happens, it's the ultimate payoff for all the sacrifices you made. So it's the biggest reward there is. And what I say, I can't really compare it. And when people ask me now, do I miss fighting? There's a lot of things you have to do for it. So for me, like I know all the sacrifices I have to make in order to be able to, be at the level I was. Um, the thing I miss though is getting my hand raised. That
Mhm.
feeling, winning, being successful, completing another mission with the team. That's something I really miss.
And how did you feel on fight day? Like when you were about to fight and when you were going into the dressing room and you were hitting the pads, warming up, and you're about to step in the cage. What are the emotions before in such a moment?
It's also depends on your training camp because sometimes in your training camp you get injured, some injuries. You may not have trained as well as you would have wanted because of that. And I was always a perfectionist. Everything had to be perfect, And sometimes maybe I was a little bit too much of a perfectionist and stressed myself out because of that. But for the feelings that I pretty much always feel and felt was anxiousness, um, um, a type of fear, a fear to not um, uh, perform at the level I know I can perform. Fear to also, maybe get injured in some way. You never know what's going to happen. Especially in I don't know for other divisions, but in the heavyweight division, there's so much power. So
Mhm.
you're fighting a guy who's a killer, who's one of the other best fighters in the world, and anything can happen. You don't know how you're going to walk out of the cage. I broke my jaw. I had other injuries happen. I've been winning fights and then get caught with something. I lose a fight. I've been losing fights and then win a fight out of nowhere. So it was always you never know what you walk into. So, but always anxiousness and a type of fear, but that also made me perform on the level that I was able to perform at. I needed that in order to do the things I have done.
And now when you sit on the couch and you're watching the fights, or when you are attending events and you are commentating there and speaking to the fighters, do you feel like, man, I miss it? I want to get back in there. Do you sometimes have that thought of that you want to come back and fight again?
Yeah, sometimes, but as I said, I know the things that I need to do, and it's a lot of sacrifices. And I have 2 young children now, so it's going to be near impossible to train the way I always used to train when I was at my best. So it's so much hard work, and I just don't have that in me anymore. Simple as that. So I miss it now and then for sure, especially when there's a crazy fight going on and then one of the fighters is victorious. I do miss that feeling. Then you want to be in the center of the octagon. You want that to be you. But at the same time, I'm also really lucky and blessed that I'm able to do the things I do now with the sport. So to be able to still be a part of the sport and not have to fight and not have to train every day, that's really nice.
And you just mentioned now you're still part of the sport. You're a very successful commentator. Was it while you were fighting? Had you already decided, okay, when I stop fighting, I will become a commentator? Or was it a decision which you took after you stopped fighting?
For sure. After, also during my career, there weren't as many opportunities in the Netherlands to be doing this right now. And I do commentary in Dutch. I do commentary in English for a couple of different organizations now. But for the last year and a half, Eurosport and Discovery Plus have acquired the rights to broadcast the UFC, and they're really putting an effort to build something. They're investing money, they're investing time to make a really good product, which is difficult because you have to think what happens is they get the American broadcast pretty much, so they get the feed that is created in the US. Everything is done to be able to make that American feed as good as possible, and so then the producers need to cut in that, and then they have to bring us into the picture. And that way it's very difficult, but we're lucky to have Discovery Plus now and Eurosport behind us to invest the time and money into it. And I think we're on the right path with that. And I also am lucky to be doing a couple of things with organizations abroad, so in English then, which is a lot of fun. And I've been getting more and more offers. So apparently people like what they see, and I'm happy to hear that because I enjoy this. Yeah, during my fight, when I was still fighting, during my fighting career, I had some offers now and then, but sometimes it didn't work out because I was under contract with the UFC, and then a different organization wanted me to do commentary or something like that, and that didn't work out. But now there's a lot of possibilities for me like that, and I try to do everything I can to get as much time as possible behind the mic so that I'm able to develop my skill set, just like with fighting. I need to get better. I need to learn from experiences. So it's fun, and it's another new goal that I told myself I want to be really good at this, and maybe one day the UFC really likes what they hear, and they tell me, hey man, you can sit next to DC or sit next to John Anik. Who knows?
Is that the ultimate goal, becoming a commentator for the UFC and sitting next to those guys and commentating?
I'm already really enjoying this with the people I work with in the Netherlands. We have a really nice team, and all the other things I do abroad, I work with really cool people. If I'm able to make it to the UFC, that's of course the ultimate goal. Although if it doesn't happen, I'm fine with doing this too. But if it does happen, that means that I have gotten to a level with this as well. Same thing with fighting. I don't think there's like a bigger appreciation you can get than the people who are making the UFC broadcasts would ask you if you want to do that there. But also right now I just started for PFL. I'm working alongside Sean O'Connell and Dan Hardy as commentating team for the European shows. So already in the second year that I'm doing that, a really big company reached out and they told me they love what I did this weekend, and they're really looking forward to the future working with me. So it's good stuff.
So it's going very, very well for you. And I was actually curious to know, because now when I listen you speak, you've got a very, very pure accent, a clear, like you don't have a Dutch accent. Have you been working on your accent? Have you put some extra work in improving your accent?
No, my English has always been good. But I lived in Florida for close to 4 years, and I traveled a lot for my career, of course. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really think that a lot of people, especially already like 10, 12 years ago, people asked me, people were surprised if I thought I would tell them that I wasn't from the US, because, you don't really hear an accent. So that's probably a good thing for me with the commentating and stuff. So, but I'm trying to just be in touch with the people in the US, and like 2-3 times a week I want to have like an hour of English conversation, because that helps me to keep my English sharp.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that you've got 2 young children, 2 kids. Would you put them to combat sports? Would it be like would you want them to start training combat sports, just not necessarily to become fighters, but just to gain that knowledge and that skill set so that they can at least protect themselves if ever necessary?
Yeah, 100%. They're both gonna learn how to defend themselves. I'd rather not have them fight because I don't want to feel that feeling anymore I had in my career. So hopefully they'll choose another sport and become really really good and successful with that. But if they do want to fight, it's their choice. I'm not gonna push them, but I am gonna teach them how to defend themselves. And of course, MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling are really good for that. So.
Yeah. And you've had a fantastic career. You've obviously had a lot of lessons. You learned a lot while fighting. If you look back at all those lessons that you gained from fighting, how do you translate those lessons to your career now and to everyday life? Like, what are these lessons and how do you translate them to everyday life and your new career?
Man, there's a lot of lessons, but when I look at it, I'm just really happy for the person uh, who I've become because of what I've done. You know, I could have done different things, and and if you look at MMA, it's not the highest paid sport in the world. Simple as that. So I could have been in the NBA or whatever and made a lot more money, but then I look at myself and I'm really happy with the person I see because. Fighting has taught me so much and it has shaped me into the person who I am with strong values and a good look on life, I think. And I think that's way more important than, any amount of money. So I'm just really happy with everything I've learned from this sport and all the opportunities I've gotten. I got to travel the world, been to pretty much every single continent to fight. I truly didn't appreciate it as much when I was fighting because every single time I want to fight, I was already looking to the next one. And my goal was to become UFC world champion. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. I had a lot of obstacles in my way, and sometimes it was hard to focus solely on fighting. And I think that's really important when you are making your way to the top. There's few fighters who are so good that they can mess around a little bit, and they don't have to be as focused always. But I really had to be focused, and of course, I had some health issues and stuff. But in the end, I'm pretty happy with what I've done. So unfortunately, I didn't become world champion, but still really happy with my career.
Of course, you've had a phenomenal career, and when you look back in the day, MMA, when you started with MMA was almost viewed as an underground sport. Like,
Yep.
it wasn't that mainstream as it is now. And I was curious to know, why did you start with MMA? Why did you not stick to kickboxing? Because I know we've also got some kickboxing fights. You are also very good in kickboxing. Why MMA? Why did you choose MMA?
Well, I was very lucky that when I started around 14, 15 years old, my brother was already training for like 3 years. And my coach, who I'm still with now, Bob Schreiber, had his gym like 10 minutes from where I live now. So I was able to ride my bike and go to the gym. And that was like one of the few gyms in the world, in the Netherlands, that was teaching MMA. At that point, it was still called Free Fight in the Netherlands. But they had a big group with good, strong guys. And I was thrown in the mix. And I was thrown in the mix like many others. Some people didn't like it. They didn't come back. But every single week, every single day, I came back for more. And, in the end, especially at that time, it wasn't really viewed as something, as a really public sport. Like, you want to play soccer, you go to your local, soccer club. At that time, the mentality was like only the strong will survive, pretty much. And then they had like heavy back classes and kickboxing, some kickboxing for kids, but the MMA hour was different. So if you wanted it, you would come back. If you didn't want it, okay, bye. So, but I kept coming back. So I was really lucky to have that at that point, especially since there weren't very much places in the Netherlands where you could train that.
And throughout your career, because very often we hear it from fighters that, when the end of their career approaches, they lose also their hunger.
Mhm.
When you look back at your career, did you also notice that when the end of your career was approaching, you kind of started to lose that hunger for
Oh yeah,
fighting?
yeah, 100%. You know, when I look at the last couple of years of my career, I won one fight, I lost five, and especially I lost to a couple guys who I know in my heart I can beat 100% with the skill level I have, and if I would have had that hunger, I would have beaten them 100%. But pretty much, I think for the when I was main eventing in the Netherlands against Volkov, I came off shoulder surgery early that year in January, and then UFC reached out in like February and March if I wanted to headline their event in Rotterdam that year in September. So I thought it would be enough time, but that was a mistake because my shoulder needed more time to get stronger again, and I probably needed an extra 3 or 4 months. But because it was the main event in the Netherlands, I didn't want to get out. So I was fighting with like a semi recovered shoulder, pretty much.
Mm.
And the first round was pretty good. I won that first round. I hit him with a big knee, cut him open. And then the second round, I wasn't able to fight in the pace anymore. And he was. Volkov, of course, a very strong fighter, as we've seen now. But at that point, not a lot of people knew him. But, you know, he was able to win the fight. And then after that, also a lot of other injuries, a couple of hand injuries. And, yeah, it just became tougher and tougher, man. So you lose the hunger a little bit at the end, for sure. And for me, it was a shame because before that, I was like 12-6 in the UFC. So I won 2 out of 3 fights. And now, you know, my retiring record is at 13-11. It's completely different because, you know, you lose 5 fights out of 6. Especially what I said, when I look at the opponents, I could have beaten most of those guys. So
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate, but in general, what would you say? For example, there are now young fighters who are watching 18, 19 years old, and they say, I want to be a UFC fighter, I want to be a champion. What advice would you give them? And also, you mentioned all the injuries, you know, be careful what you wish for.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to those fighters, young fighters?
You know, a lot of kids see this on TV and they think it's cool. You really have to do this because you like it, you know. And there's some guys who get into MMA after a career in a different sport like wrestling or combat sambo or whatever, and they are ready and they are really good. And there's a lot of money out there for them. They do it for the money, and that's, you know, the money should be a big factor for you when you want to make it big and want to make it far. Especially after you retire, you need that money because, you know, you've done this for such a long time. It's a weird world out there. You don't really know what you are gonna do, and I'm one of the lucky ones who was able to, you know, be able to do what I'm doing right now with the commentary and analysis and all the opportunities I'm getting right now. So really do it because you love it. Go to the gym, and when you're already struggling when you're very young, then you probably don't love it as much. Simple as that. You know, I loved it every single day. When I was around 18, 19 years old, I was already a pro fighter at that point, winning a lot of fights. But the only thing I wanted to do when I woke up was train, 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 you know. And later on, it will, you know, after, you know, training a couple of years full time, it will get a little old and you won't like all the sessions. But what I say, I always tell this to everybody who comes to my classes as well: do it because you like it. Simple as that. If you don't like it, don't do this. Simple.
Okay. And one last question, because I am a young sport journalist and I
Uh-huh.
see your success as a sport journalist, and that also inspires me. What advice would you give me and other sport journalists? What steps should we take in order to become successful in sports journalism?
It's a little bit of the same advice I just told you. Do it because you like it, but you are doing it because you like it. Simple as that. You want to be a sports journalist because you love sport. You want to write about it. You want to talk about it. But it's especially because there's not a lot of people who know you already from your sports career. You know, that's where I'm lucky or lucky. You know, that's what I created for myself with what I put in the octagon. People know me, and then, you know, my English is really good, so that's a good thing. So your English is really good already. I would focus on that, you know, to get even better at that, where you really feel comfortable with yourself on a mic in Dutch and English. And especially in the beginning, there's not going to be a lot of opportunities. So you need to be able to create opportunities for yourself. To be able to create opportunities for yourself, you need to invest time and money, because nobody's going to pay you to make a program already, because who knows you? You know what I mean? So in the beginning, you probably need to set something up, a podcast or analysis or whatever, right now, because you enjoy it. But also with the look on the future, you know, when you're really good at it, people are going to follow you. And, you know, at a certain point when you have to, you know, also get a little lucky, the right people will see it. And then you'll be approached to maybe, you know, work with a company that does MMA broadcasting or whatever. And of course, send in your resume, you know, harass them, tell them you're good, show them what you do. And especially when you, you know, build a resume and do a podcast or whatever, then you have something ready. Yeah, you have to chase it, man. Jump on opportunities. Last week, PFL asked me a couple of weeks ago, and I already had a couple shows standing out. The last 4 weeks, I did 7 or 8 different shows, sometimes on Friday. So last week on Friday, I did 2 Cage Warriors shows, because they had Cage Warriors Unplugged in London. So I did 2 of those shows in Hilversum in the studio. Then I booked a hotel at Schiphol Airport. I got to the hotel at 3, woke up at 6, got in the airplane, flew to Newcastle, slept 1 hour, went to the event, and did a whole new event. I do it also because I love it, but when opportunity knocks, jump on it, get it, and, you know, kick in the fucking door.
Okay, so make a name for yourself.
Exactly.
Put the work in and just show up. You know that these are lessons.
Nobody's going to approach you when you don't make a name for yourself. You know, same thing for me with my UFC career. I was very young when I got into the UFC, but I already won like 20 or 22 pro fights. So same thing with everything. You gotta, you know, you gotta be out there. People need to see you, because if they don't see you, why, nobody's gonna come to you and be like, hey, I think you are good at sports journalism, aren't you? Yeah. I don't think it's gonna happen.
No.
So you gotta, you know, you gotta do it. And what I say in the beginning, there's nobody who's gonna offer you money. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a sponsor, you know, a little bit after you start it. But for the rest, go after it, go get it. When opportunity comes, kick in the door and get it. Okay,
that's very, very good advice. And you know, it comes from a person who's been successful not only in fighting but also in journalism. So I truly appreciate it.
No worries.
I appreciate the time. I wish you all the best in your career in PFL, in Cage Warriors. I hope you reach the UFC also as a commentator.
I've already reached it for the Netherlands. So now, you know, it would be cool if I can do it for the US too. But, you know, if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. But I just try to enjoy every single thing I do, you know. And right now, because I don't work exclusively for a single company, I have like 8 different organizations I work with. So that's a lot of fun. You know, I get see a lot of different faces. I get to travel to a lot of different countries. And that's the life I also had when I was in my career, in my fighting career, which I really enjoyed. And now, you know, I've created something again where, you know, where I get paid. People, you know, ask me to travel and do certain things. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I'll be very happy if one day I can sit next to you in the UFC and commentate on a big fight. That would be me next to you and John Anik. That would be some special.
There, you set yourself a goal. I hope we'll reach that, my man. That would be great.
Of course. I appreciate your time and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Same for you, my friend.